Hello. This broadcast is about potential trends that I think are important for observers, for people interested in public and global affairs to think about. Many people these days speak about the period post the corona world and think this is basically the end of globalization and the return of the state. And I think, yes, in many countries, we will see a rise in state power and in the ability of the state to come back to play major roles in the economy, major roles in the politics of their own countries. And more or less, we are entering a period that is vastly different, certainly, from what was the case globally in the past 10, 15 years. But I think the idea that the state will return all over the world is also a misconception. Many states, executive powers, will actually be acutely challenged in the coming 10, 5, 10 years, maybe even less than that. Why? Because what will basically happen once the health concerns start to go down, that the economic concerns start to rise. And what will happen, obviously, is that unemployment will rise, inflation will rise, income levels will plummet, lifestyles will suffer massively, especially actually in countries that were traditionally rich and have high expectations about their lifestyles. And here, the demands from many people will be not just for the state to provide for basic services. It will be more than that. It will be for the state to protect the lifestyles that many people were used to. And many states will fail that test. Another concern that will certainly materialize, that as the economic situations deteriorate in many parts of the world, crime rates will rise. And also, there will be many places in the world where the state, the executive power, will be unable to meet the security needs of the people. If you put these two factors together, what will actually happen in many parts of the world, that the need for the people, from the people, for the state will go up because the level of fear will be high, but the ability of many states to meet those needs will not materialize. So some countries, yes, will be able to meet those needs, will be able to come across in front of its people as being able to deliver. And here we will see the return of the state. But in many cases, the state will not be able to meet those economic needs, those security needs. And therefore, in these circumstances, we will see many people losing faith in the power of the state, in the reverence that ought to be there for the state. Many people will question, many communities will start to question why. Why is the state there? I think if you want to think about which states will be able to meet those demands and which state will fail those demands, you have to keep in mind two factors. One is the power of the state institutions. And here I do not just mean armed forces, police, judiciary, no. I mean the civil service. I mean the different factions of the executive power. And the idea here is not just to be able to assert control, but in addition to that, to be able to organize, to deploy, to execute plans and policies. Basically, the governance dimension of governing takes huge importance in this stage. You can lump all of that together is very good governance and power of state institutions. The second factor, which I think is very important to think which states will succeed and which will fail, is the cohesiveness of societies. Here, I do not mean whether societies are ethnically cohesive, though it helps, but this is not the key variable here. The key variable here is whether there is a wider agreement within the society on the role of the state, on the state-citizen relationship. If you do have a large-scale, wide agreement on those issues, then when the time comes, quickly, to make decisions about which groups to bail out, which groups to support, to raise taxes on high earners, to take care of other people, many of these fraught, difficult social decisions will be made easily, smoothly, in societies in which the role of the state, the nature of the social contract, the relationship between the state and the citizen are agreed upon, it will be fine. The more these issues are acutely contested, there's no agreement on them, on the contrary, there is major disagreements on them, the more these decisions will prove very difficult. And here, state institutions, their power and cohesiveness of different societies together, I think will play a major role on whether or not states will not just fail the test or succeed in the test, but the consequences of that. Because one potential consequence is real polarizations in societies that could not just challenge the societies, but maybe even lead to, I don't want to say civil wars, but real polarizations. So when some people start to say, well, one potential consequence of that is the rise of the far right or the far left, yes, of course, and therefore there is a concern about democracy, yes, but it goes beyond that, because the concern could very well, in many countries, be about the existence of the state itself, at least with any semblance of centralization and coming together. That's the first trend. The second trend is more global. Many people say one major consequence of this corona situation is increased digitization, which is true. Certainly, many industries will basically migrate to the virtual world very soon. But what does that mean? One trend that has already started over the past 5 to 10 years, and there's a great book on it, by the way, by Professor Shoshana Zuboff of Harvard. It's called Surveillance Capitalism. It's a brilliant book on that trend. And the trend is basically that it's not just that we are moving more and more towards a virtual world, and that this will continue, obviously, post-corona, COVID-19, but in the period post-COVID-19, post-corona, that trend will increase. Now, that trend, which started these 5-10 years ago, is that the nature of the digital world, the business models in the business world have been changing dramatically. Initially, and until maybe 10 years ago, we, the consumers, were basically making money for the tech giants by paying for them, or by basically increasing the popularity of certain contents, and therefore advertising revenue starts to increase for those tech giants. Over the past 5+ years, that continues, but something else started to happen. That the predictive power of those tech giants, because of major developments in artificial intelligence, in great logarithms, blah, 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 meant that our behavior, our patterns of thinking became the product, in the sense of we became the product because our potential actions, our potential choices became very predictable for the tech giants, and therefore it was becoming easier, much easier for them to monetize our behavior now and our future behavior. That proved to be a dramatic bonanza, revenue streams for tech giants. In an essence, the product that is being monetized in the virtual world is increasingly us, the people, basically. Some people say, all right, though I think that's by itself a very important trend that needs to be thought about in this virtual world. But it has a political consequence, actually a geopolitical consequence. That most of these tech giants, these major companies, not only want to make money. Yes, they do want to make money, of course, but it goes beyond that. Also, in the past 5-10 years, you do have, as always in history, a confluence coming together of different nodes, different centers of power into webs, into networks of power, that sees that the future is virtual, that sees that there's a new product here, which is us, the users, that sees the incredible evolution in the nature of data and in the size and scale of data, and that have their own views about the potential global order. Long story short, you can think of it as Silicon Valley meeting Wall Street, meeting political power centers together. What I'm driving at here is that the increasing in virtualization, in moving to the virtual world, in many industries coming to the virtual world more and more in a large scale, one, changes the nature of the product being monetized, being sold, more and more to become us, our behavior, our thinking, the predictions about what we'll think about. But that the orchestrators of that new economy is not just technology giants that just want to make money. There is wider political economy thinking, wider thinking about the global order, in which political centers, financial powers, and the tech giants come together, because the interests are very much similar, but also many times the views about the global order are also very similar. Where is the geopolitical dimension here? The geopolitical dimension is in that most of these webs of power are in the Anglo-Saxon world, primarily the US, of course. And we have already seen in the last 5-10 years that China, for example, has been almost trying to create its own universe of digital world. I think this will increase massively in the coming few years, that more and more, as these webs of power become even more powerful with the virtualization of life, with the increasing digitization of industries, we'll find China increasing its efforts to empower its own virtual world, its own universe of the internet. Other countries such as Russia, for example, will also try to resist this increasing power of these tech giants that are nodes, centers in wider networks of power. But the vast majority of countries worldwide will just succumb. I mean, they will have no ability to resist this new economy. So here, you have a humanistic element about the evolution of us, of our positioning as users in that new economy. Two, you do have elements to think about the evolution of the digital world, in which some power centers, many power centers, webs of power, are in the Anglo-Saxon world, but China trying to increase its own webs of power in its own digital universe. Many countries basically have to accept that this is the future, and therefore they just accept this new economy. And more of their own citizens become more and more products in that new economy. But also some countries, such as Russia, start to resist significantly this new economy, these webs of power. What I'm trying to drive at, that this is not just the emergence of a new economy that is much bigger version of trends we've seen in the last 5-10 years, but there is potentially very serious geopolitical confrontations as this new economy gains hold and other countries such as China, but also Russia, try to have their own webs of power in their own potential versions of this new economy. These two trends, in my opinion, regarding the state, its power or its decline in different parts of the world, and the digitization and the emergence of this new economy and the consequences of this new economy from a geopolitical point of view, these two trends, I think, are worthy of really thinking about, reflecting upon in the imagination, in the conceptions of the world after the coronavirus, after the COVID-19. Thank you.